Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the business model of a company called Gravita India. We're going to look closely at their latest financial and strategic data to see exactly how they've built what might just be the ultimate case study in green profitability.
So, here's a question for you. Can saving the environment actually drive 25% annual revenue growth? For the longest time, the traditional assumption in business has been that sustainability and massive corporate profit are just fundamentally at odds, right? You either protect the planet or you maximize your margins. But as we'll see as we analyze the source material today, that whole paradigm might be completely shifting.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for The Explainer so you know exactly how this story is going to unfold. First, building a green world. Second, 3 decades of growth. Third, the FY26 financial snapshot. And finally, Vision 2030 and beyond.
Let's kick things off with part 1, building a green world.
Recycle today for a better tomorrow. It's a catchy motto, sure, but it really anchors the heavy industrial reality of large-scale recycling with the environmental outcome it aims to achieve. Gravita's stated mission here is highly ambitious, to say the least. They want to rank among the top 5 global recycling companies, and they plan to pull this off through eco-friendly innovation and sustainable growth, essentially creating serious value while safeguarding the environment at the exact same time.
So how do they actually do this in a real world? Well, their business verticals span across lead, aluminum, plastic, rubber, copper, and lithium. Now I want you to stop and think about the devices you use every single day. Think about the smartphone in your hand, your laptop, or even the electric vehicles driving around your neighborhood. All of these technologies rely incredibly heavily on materials like copper and lithium. By recycling these absolutely critical elements, operations like Gravita are feeding directly back into our modern supply chain. It's like a giant puzzle, and they are providing the missing pieces.
Moving right along to part 2, 3 decades of growth. Now, to really understand their massive scale today, we actually need to zoom all the way out. This whole operation started back in 1992. It was founded by a first-generation entrepreneur, Rajat Agarwal, right in the heritage-rich city of Jaipur, India. Starting from this absolute micro perspective, one entrepreneur in a single city, really makes the macro global scale they've achieved today look all the more striking. Just look at the momentum here. A mere 3 years after they were founded, in 1995, they established their very first overseas recycling unit in Sri Lanka. Fast forward to 2010, and they're listed on the NSE and BSE. Then you see them just consistently adding new commodity verticals to their portfolio. They brought in aluminum recycling in 2015, and looking ahead to 2025, they've expanded into lithium battery recycling and acquired a copper value-added products business. It is just a relentless pace of adding capacities and crossing borders, literally non-stop growth.
That brings us to part 3, the FY26 financial snapshot.
48%. Let that sink in for a second. According to their reporting, that represents their staggering 5-year PAT, or profit after tax, compound annual growth rate. Growing your bottom line by nearly 50% year over year for half a decade? That is a wildly significant metric, especially in the heavy industrial manufacturing and recycling space. But hey, growth is only part of the story, right? Efficiency is the other half of the equation. And they are sustaining roughly a 24% return on invested capital, or ROIC. To put that into perspective for you, executing massive global expansion and building heavy industrial plants requires a ton of cash. So maintaining a 24% ROIC while aggressively scaling up the way they are, that is a truly rare and impressive feat. It shows some serious, ironclad discipline in how they deploy their capital. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly where that capital is generating those returns. Check this out. For FY26, only 36% of their revenue actually comes from India, while a massive 64% is generated overseas. It highlights just how heavily their whole business relies on that successful global footprint they started building way back in the 90s. They really aren't just a domestic company anymore. They are a deeply embedded global player. Of course, to maintain a global machine like that, you got to spend money to make money. 372 crore rupees. That is the massive Capex, or capital expenditure, they incurred during the FY26 year alone. This represents the sheer capital investment required to build out real, physical infrastructure. A prime example of this is the commissioning of their new 6,000 metric ton lithium-ion battery recycling plant in Mundra. It's positioned strategically right near the port to enhance their raw materials sourcing and give them prime access to global markets.
Finally, let's look ahead with Part 4, Vision 2030 and beyond. The future targets they've laid out here are incredibly ambitious. They are aiming for a 20 to 25% volume compound annual growth rate, while simultaneously sustaining that high ROIC of about 25%, all leading to a targeted 30 to 35% growth in profitability. The absolute crucial takeaway here is the balance. They aren't just blindly chasing empty volume growth. They're making absolutely sure that any volume expansion is perfectly balanced with strict, highly disciplined profitability metrics. Let's move to and see how this builds. To actually hit those aggressive targets, they have to evolve their product mix. Step 1 is increasing the share of value-added products, so they make up about 45 to 50% of their total mix. Step 2 is expanding the contribution from their non-lead businesses up to 35 to 40%. Basically, they're making a very deliberate strategic shift toward higher margin verticals. We're talking copper, rubber, and lithium.
Which brings us to their grand finale data point. Their long-term capacity target is over 8 lakh metric tons per annum, planned by FY 2029. Just try to picture the sheer physical scale of achieving over 8 lakh metric tons of recycled material every single year. It requires an immense, almost mind-boggling logistical and operational network. And it really underscores their long-term commitment to scaling their core segments while fearlessly pushing into new frontiers. So what does this all mean? Well, I want to leave you with this final thought. As companies like Gravita prove that massive profitability and high returns can absolutely be extracted from recycled commodities, will the shift to a circular economy redefine global industrial leadership? Will the industrial giants of tomorrow be the ones who dig new materials out of the earth, or the ones who figure out how to endlessly reuse them? It's a fascinating question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.